If you had the ability, or if one had the ability to, at your current age, because trial and error, experience is the best teacher. If you had the ability to go back and talk to what would you tell the 18-year-old version of yourself? So number one, you want to master a skill that pays you. So there's a difference between a skill and a hobby, right? A hobby is going up to your local park or rec center and shooting hoops. That's a hobby. You're not gonna get paid from that. You're just not gonna get paid. A skill is, you can learn a skill through trade, through tech, through sales, through some type of craft. It could be, you could teach yourself photography. You could learn how to trade the market. There are various instruments on the market. In other words, it could be content creation. It could be something. And again, I'm talking to my 18-year-old self. Now, the internet, back when I was 18, the internet was still in its inception, but there were still other viable avenues that I could have chosen, or that I could have selected, that would have put me on a much earlier or sooner path to success. You got to understand and remember that competence is the first attribute of self-respect. You should respect yourself enough to understand how you're going to make money. That's the first foundation before you can do anything, is how will you make a living in this world? Because, all right, here's the next one. This is a big one as well. They're all big, but this is the next one. Get financially literate before you get financially free. Everybody in this lifetime, we dream, well, not everybody, but most of us, we dream of becoming financially free. Or in other words, dream of being wealthy, or not having to have a material worry in the world. And before you understand when the finances come, when the windfall comes, learn to understand money, learn to be financially literate. You see it every day. Professional athletes, they come from humble beginnings, or they come from an impoverished beginning, and they don't understand financial literacy. And what do? Not all, but some will go and buy a $250,000 chain, $250,000 watch, and they have $500,000 sitting on their neck and their wrist. If they needed to go melt that down or scrap it, you will never get that $500,000 in what you used that paid that custom jeweler to get that paid. So this is what I mean about financial literacy. Now let me explain, and then I'm going to quickly move on to the next one. Learn the B word. Here's the B word. The B word is budget. And here's an analogy for budget. Budget is like a guardrail that's on a road or a freeway or expressway. If, God forbid, if you happen to veer off of it, what could happen is that you would hit the guardrail. The guardrail is going to steer you back into the center of the road, or at least to your side of the road or street. In other words, it keeps you from having a catastrophic incident that's unrecoverable. That's what a budget does. When you budget, you don't live beyond your means. Just because you can because some of us at some point, you may be able to live beyond your means, but it makes more sense for you to live within the means, because it keeps you honest. It keeps you from being an egotistical person, because then you start making ego purchases, because now you're looking for external validation from other people. And I can tell you and we've all gone through that, right? You buy a fit, or you buy a whip, or a house, and sometimes in the back of your mind, you're trying to impress. It could be a woman. You're trying to impress and you put it on social media for external validation. Never do that. Make sure that you learn and understand what a budget. And part of that is just basically becoming financial literate. So the third one is getting financially literate before you get financially free. All right, here's the next one. The next one is learn to sit in silence. And I talk about, you can look at it in this video. I put it here. This is a video I did on another channel, but this is another one of my channels. But you can check this video out here if you want to click on it after you watch this video. But learn to sit in silence. In other words, learn to meditate. Learn to what I call self-audit. Think about an audit, like an IRS audit, where the government audits your books. They look at every single thing. All you're doing is auditing yourself, taking into account the situationships, the relationships, the acquaintances, what you have all on your table. You would have to go through that with a fine tooth comb, and then you have to ask yourself, is it worth your time and effort? If it's a distraction, it gotta go. I don't care how fine she is. I don't care if you your homeboy, and I'm all about having friends for life, and I use the word friend very sparingly. But if that person is not elevating themselves, then perhaps it's time to cut the cord. Circle so small, everybody can't go. Learn to sit in the silence. Learn what it is to be in solitude. Simply, what's that going to do is that's going to help you, so you're not feeling like you need to be around people. Because right now, somebody, they got to be at the club every weekend. And we go through this too. Women go through it where they feel like they need a man in their bed every night. Man, we go through the same thing. You feel like you need a woman on your arm. Because it's not even about value, it's about proximity. When you're comfortable, when you're used to having something that's there, then you're used to just having something that's there. And again, I understand it, but learn to self-audit, learn to sit in the silence, learn to get off social media, learn to just sit in absolute silence and go through it. If it's a week where you just fall off the face of the earth, you don't have to make no announcement. Just go do it and help regulate yourself emotionally. That's going to help you. Again, this is some of the advice I wish I had when I was 18 years old. Again, clearly I'm not 18, but if you could go back and tell yourself that at 18, imagine how far and how quicker you would have been able to ascend and get to that level where you know that you're getting things done. Moving on. Next one is study successful men. And this is what I mean. Study non-famous successful men. That could be your pawpaw, could be your dad, could be your neighbor. It could be, you might be part of some like a men's group. Intently study and pay attention to them and look at them and how they are winning. These are the people that you need to use as a template of how to become successful. We want to look at Michael Jordan. I get we want to look at Denzel Washington. That's my favorite actor, by the way. I get you want to look at that type of stuff, but look at a common person, somebody that you're going to be able to rub elbows with and look. And I'm not saying be exactly like them, but solicit and seek advice. And you seek advice by actually visually paying attention to them and looking at them and listening to what they say. So understand and learn how to study men who have finished well. You'll go further. Almost done on this edition of the Purple Pill. Thank you for taking time out your busy schedule to take a look at this video in its entirety. Here's the next one. I'm going to paraphrase James Allen, and I'm paraphrasing. Man does not attract what they are, they attract, or they don't attract what they want, they attract who they are. Become grounded in your deity. Become grounded in God. Understand to become what, and it might not even be God, it might be whatever. You might be Hindu, you might be Muslim, you might be whatever it is. Learn to become grounded with your deity or your higher source. And the reason I'm saying this, before you can embark in a relationship with anybody, before you can lead any woman or lead anyone, you have to make sure that you're grounded. If you can't take instruction from a higher power, if you can't merge and marry, and we talk about in our men's group, we talk about the first marriage of man, and that's the Christ, that's the ego mind, and they become essentially, it's almost like Genesis 2:24, the two shall become one. I'm paraphrasing that. Then how can you lead somebody? More often than not, we go getting into relationships with other people, and we don't even have a relationship. We're not even grounded with the source of our resources. So get a spiritual life, get a prayer life, get in the ability and the habit of learning how to meditate and learning how to focus. Once you understand that, then it makes it much easier to navigate. And then when you get with somebody, if she's not on your program, then guess what? She's gonna have to kick rocks. And remember, you learned about emotional regulation. You don't feel like you need somebody because of proximity. Because remember, it's quality over quantity. Here's the last one. Last but not least, I want you to write down all your standards. Even if you're going to use AI, you can use the voice activated feature in AI, whatever. You might want to write it down for the more organic approach. Write down your standards, because if you don't, somebody else is going to develop your standards for you. Learn to record what you will not take. In other words, learn what your non-negotiables are. That could be with your homeboy. That could be with your potentially your future wife. Some of us ain't gonna get married. Could be a future long-term relationship. But learn your non-negotiables first. And then what you do is you write down, and I like to call them my 10 commandments. Write down what those non-negotiables are. And by no Stretch of the imagination. Don't conform. Don't go off of them because she's pretty or she's a triple threat, right? She got a pretty face. She got a small waist. She got the hips. She top heavy. She just perfect. She just has the aesthetic. Never go off your non-negotiable. Never go off for a homeboy or a sibling. Understand what your non-negotiables are, because what that keeps you honest, and then that tells people that you value yourself. And if people can't honor your non-negotiables, then guess what? You need to get gone. They ain't even got to go. You get gone. Understand that. And so we made it to the end of the video. I appreciate your efforts by taking a look at it, and I thank you for your time. And if this video adds value, go ahead and hit the subscribe button, and hit that notification bell so when I upload new content, you will get it in its entirety. This is the Purple Pill. I will see y'all on the next one. I'm out.